Prepare your response after the beep. Start speaking after the beep.
A thesis is a claim that you can argue for or against. It should be something that you can present persuasively and clearly in the scope of your paper, so keep in mind the page count. If possible, your thesis should also be somewhat original.
Prepare your response after the beep. Start speaking after the beep.
In Germany, over 100,000 tons of diapers are discarded each year, resulting in the wastage of valuable resources. Diaper liners, which contain special polymers known as superabsorbers, are among the materials that end up in landfills. However, researchers have made significant progress in enhancing the recycling process for these liners, leading to substantial improvements.
There are many explanations for the loss of the collective.
Prepare your response after the beep. Start speaking after the beep.
There are many explanations for the loss of the collective.
If you have any questions in the exam, please raise your hands.
Prepare your response after the beep. Start speaking after the beep.
If you have any questions in the exam, please raise your hands.
Prepare your response after the beep. Start speaking after the beep.
This line graph highlights the Dubai gold sale over a period of 2020 from Jan to December. The quantity used to be highest in March at $350 million, and the quantity regularly declined, to reach a low of $100 million in July. On the other hand, in July, the number of $100 million used to be the lowest in 2020, and it gradually rose, peaking at $200 million. In conclusion/overall, it may be noticed that fluctuation was observed in the given data.
Prepare your response after the beep. Start speaking after the beep.
The slices of the pie chart illustrate preferred mode of commuting. The data is presented in form of percentage. It's crystal clear from the pie chart that the lion's percentage of preferred mode of commuting is covered by metro, followed by bike. On the other hand, the smallest part is covered/occupied by car. In conclusion/overall, it may be stated that metro is the most preferred mode of commuting and car is the least mode of commuting.
In a learning environment, a common cause of boredom is lack of understanding. For instance, if one is not following or connecting to the material in a class or lecture, it will usually seem boring. However, the opposite can also be true. Something that is too easily understood, simple or transparent, can also be boring. Boredom is often inversely related to learning, and in school it may be a sign that a student is not challenged enough, or too challenged. An activity that is predictable to the students is likely to bore them. Boredom has been studied as being related to drug abuse among teens. Boredom has been proposed as a cause of pathological gambling behavior. A study found results consistent with the hypothesis that pathological gamblers seek stimulation to avoid states of boredom and depression. It has been suggested that boredom has an evolutionary basis that encourages humans to seek out new challenges. It may influence human learning and ingenuity. Some recent studies have suggested that boredom may have some positive effects. A low-stimulus environment may lead to increased creativity.
Prepare your response after the beep. Start speaking after the beep.
The lecturer talks about boredom in educational environments, its causes and effects. She thinks boredom can be experienced if a student finds a class too easy or too difficult. Boredom has been found as the reason behind gambling and drug abuse, as bored humans want to experience new challenges. However, boredom also has some positive effects such as increased creativity.
What I want to look at today is the question of how much technology, if, a pen can indeed be called technology. Perhaps I should say the instrument of writing affects a writer's style and level of production. I also want to consider other factors that may have an effect on prose style, such as personality, educational background, and so on. Now, production levels aren't so hard to measure in relation to the writing instrument used. The quill pen, for instance, would need continual refilling and resharpening, which led to a leisurely, balanced style of prose full of simple sentences. Writing took a lot longer than now, and the great novelists of the 18th century, Fielding, Smollett, Richardson, had a relatively small output, though some of their books ran to enormous length. By the middle of the 19th century, the fountain pen had been invented. It didn't need such constant refilling, which can account for the more flowing, discursive style of, say, Dickens and Thackeray, as well as their tremendous output. Then came the typewriter, whose purpose, once you got the hang of it, was to speed up the writing process and was therefore much favored by journalists. This, it seems to me, gave rise to a short-winded style characterized by short sentences. A short prose style, if you like. Dictating machines and tape recorders led, as one novelist complained, to writers becoming too conversational, rambling and long-winded. Henry James, although he didn't use these machines, dictated his later novels and, well, some might agree with this accusation. Well, it looks as though we're going to have to leave word processors, computers and, of course, the way film and its narrative techniques have affected writing style for another day.
Prepare your response after the beep. Start speaking after the beep.
The instrument writers use affects their style. Writing with a quill took a long time, so writers tended to write in short sentences. They had a balanced style and their output was small. Writing with a fountain pen led to a more flowing style. Writing with a typewriter produced a more journalistic style, and writers produced much more work. Some people feel that writers who dictated their work, such as Henry James, became too conversational.